Welcome to the club! Hello everyone, and finally we are here today to discuss the second part of the book Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. We had a small break. We hope that you waited for us, and today we are ready finally to discuss the second part of this book.
I just wanted to say that
Yes.
Before we start discussing the book, I wanted to mention some things because I finished reading the book about Bradbury's biography.
Yes, please.
And I want to correct some piece of information
Yes.
that we talked about our last video. So we spoke about his wife and that he was with one woman for his whole life, but actually
It's not true?
Yes, because
Oh,
I
it's
told
sad.
last time I told that they had problems and she wanted to divorce, and after that their relationship were not very nice.
Worsen.
Yeah, that's why he had some affairs with other women. But sometime later, his relationship with his wife got better, and they ended up together again. They were not divorced officially, but yes, so they had some problems and misunderstandings and other relationships. Probably, I do not know a lot about her. But yes, so as for him, for sure, he had some other women.
Well, it's a little bit sad, of course, but it is what it is. Okay, thanks.
Yes, so it's just something that, not to give you some kind of misleading information,
Yes.
I just wanted to comment on that. And also I want to say that I really enjoyed the book about his biography, about his life, especially the last chapters. They made me cry, even though it's very difficult to make me cry. So, I mean that when I watch movies or when I read books, even though it is sad, I do not cry a lot, so it happens really rarely. But this time, yeah, so it was so touching, and I really loved the last chapters because they were not like just biography, but like just a good piece of literature. That's why I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so anything else?
No.
No. Then let's move to the summary.
Yes. Colonel freely calls Mexico City to speak to his old friend Jorge. He asks Jorge to put the phone to the window so he can hear the sounds. The colonel is taken back to the experiences of that faraway city. His nurse enters and finds the receiver and hangs up the phone for him. Reproaching him for all this agitation, he poses himself with the phone and the boys that visit. The colonel manages to cross the room on his own feet to make one more call to Jorge in Mexico City. Jorge makes him promise that this will be the last time, and he holds the phone to the window again. Time passes. 3 boys, including Douglas, arrive at the colonel's room, and Douglas finds the colonel dead, his hand still on the phone. He puts the receiver to his ear, and 2,000 miles away a window closes. In the basement, grandfather Spaulding and Douglas counting the bottles of Dandelion Wine. Douglas remembers the date of each bottle and what happened on that day. He considers all the things and people lost this summer. On the first day of August, Bill Forrester drives Douglas to the drugstore where Bill orders an old-fashioned lime vanilla ice. Miss Loomis identifies Douglas as Spaulding and William Forrester as the columnist for the local newspaper. Bill confesses he was in love with her once. A newspaper had printed a picture of her in an article about a charity event, but the picture dated back to 1853. He tore out the picture and intended to meet the woman in the photo. The next day over tea, Miss Loomis describes cities to William, taking him there with her words. For 2.5 weeks, William visits her every afternoon, and she takes him all over the world with her words. At the end of August, Helen tells William that she has been writing a special letter to him to be read only after she dies. She makes him promise one thing, that he not live too old so they can meet each other in their next lives and be the same age. 2 days later, the special letter arrives. 3 young ladies, Lavinia, Francine, and Helen, walk downtown warm evening to watch a movie. In the ravine, Lavinia and Francine discover the body of a woman killed by the lonely one, the murderer at large in the town. Lavinia believes that they are safe, but while walking home alone, she thinks that a man is following her. Terrified, she runs home only to find the lonely one himself waiting inside her house. She stabs him with scissors. One day, great-grandmom, 90 years old, looks back at her life. Lying in the bed, she prepares to die. She explains to Tom that her time has come and she is living with no regrets. Douglas realizes that he can't rely on things or people because they wear out, live or die.
Okay, I will continue. The Tarot Witch is an old machine in an arcade that can tell fortunes. Douglas takes his brother Tom to see it because he is afraid of dying. The arcade owner, Mr. Black, gets angry when the machine doesn't work and says he would throw it away. Douglas thinks the Tarot Witch is trying to send them a message for help. Tom distracts Mr. Black while Douglas takes the machine. Mr. Black fights them and throws the machine in a ditch. Later, Douglas and Tom, with the help of their father, take the Tarot Witch home. Douglas hopes to open it one day and see what is inside. He thinks a new blank card from the machine is thanking them for rescuing it. Mr. Jonas, a junk collector, comes to Greentown with his horse Ned and a wagon. He takes junk from one town to another, where people find items they want. The town's kids happily look through his wagon's contents and give him things they don't want anymore. The heat covers the town. Tom finds his brother Douglas burning with fever in bed. The doctor can't figure out what is wrong. The family tries cooling him with ice chips, but Douglas keeps having feverish dreams about the summer events. At 4 p.m., Tom tearfully tells Mr. Jonas that his brother is dying. Mr. Jonas promises to think about how to help. Later, Mr. Jonas wants to talk to the sleeping Douglas, but Mrs. Spaulding doesn't allow it for safety reasons. At night, the family brings Douglas outside under the apple tree. After midnight, Mr. Jonas visits him and leaves 2 bottles beside him, one with pure northern air and the other with wind from Ireland. He softly tells Douglas that some people get sadder younger and he is one of them. In the morning, Tom finds Douglas breathing cool air and announces he is going to be fine. The family gathers around the peacefully sleeping Douglas. Aunt Rose comes to visit and Grandma cooks in the kitchen. The kitchen seems like the center and Grandma makes amazing dishes. Aunt Rose asks what's for dinner and Grandfather says no one knows beforehand. Rose says she likes knowing in advance. The family eats Grandma's food, but Aunt Rose asks what it is. Grandma says it's what they have every Thursday, but that is a lie. Her cooking has always been new and creative. Aunt Rose says Grandma would be a better cook if she was more organized. Grandma agrees and starts cleaning up. Aunt Rose gives Grandma a cookbook and new glasses. The next dinner is terrible for the family, but Aunt Rose likes it. Grandfather makes a plan with Douglas. They pick Aunt Rose's bags and say goodbye to her. Grandma's food is still bad after Aunt Rose leaves. Douglas throws away the cookbook, hides the glasses, and resets Grandma's kitchen. Grandma cooks an amazing meal in the night. This was Douglas's way to pay Mr. Jonas back. Douglas looks outside and thinks about how time goes backwards. He goes up to the cupola and uses his magic to tell the town to get ready for sleep. When everyone is asleep in their beds and it's quiet, he thinks about how summer is ending and fall is coming soon. After fall, there will be winter, then spring, and then a new summer. During all those months, he can go down and get Dandelion Wine to remember the patterns of life. What are your overall thoughts about the second part of the book?
I liked it, but I think that I liked the first part more, just because there were more stories that I really loved. So here it was again really nice and I enjoyed it a lot, but not that much as the first part. What about you?
I completely agree with you, because even you can see that in the first part there are so many stickers, but in the second part there are much fewer of them. And I think that the reason is the first part of the book is describing the beginning of summer, the beginning of something. And the second part is connected with the ending of the summer, and also it's full of different deaths, which are kind of like the dying of summer. And of course the impression is created very nicely, because it really gives you this feeling that everything is dying and it's sad and all of that stuff. It made me feel kind of like depressed a little bit, because the first part is full of stories filled with motivation to be active, to live, and so on and so forth. But in the second part there are very many deaths, and it made me, yes, upset.
I may start with a quote. It was in the story about Miss Loomis, and she said, "I don't know anything. The beginning of wisdom, as they say. When you are 17, you know everything. When you are 27, if you still know everything, you are still 17." And I really like this quote just because I feel this way, because the older I get, the more I understand that I do not know anything about anything. Sometimes it scares me and upsets me, but I think that it is just our life.
Yes.
That we just start understanding more things about a lot of things in our lives, and we understand that actually we know nothing.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I even remember the period in my life when I felt like I was a complete grown up, and it was in the 11th grade at school, because it's the last grade at school and you're the oldest among the rest of the children at school. You feel that, okay, I'm the oldest, I know everything, but then you go to the first course at the university and you understand that you're the youngest there and you don't know anything in fact. And when I was in the 11th grade, I was like full of self-confidence, and I was like thinking I can do everything, I know everything. But then on the first course of the university, I realized that I knew nothing and I'm not very much capable of many things. I would like to read this extract from the story about Colonel Freely. He lifted himself in the cool bed. Tomorrow the telephone gone. What a greedy fool he had been. He slipped his brittle ivory legs down from the bed, marveling at their desiccation. They seemed to be things which had been fastened to his body while he slept one night, while his younger legs were taken off and burned in the cellar furnace. Over the years, they had destroyed all of him, removing hands, arms, and legs, and leaving him with substitutes as delicate and useless as chess pieces. And now they were tampering with something more intangible, the memory. They were trying to cut the wires which led back into another year. I think the description is so bright that with the years, indeed, our body gets different from what it was before. The longer a person lives, the more changes appear. It is a frightening thing that you can't do some things physically on your own and you need help. It frightens me a lot that one day I might also face the situation when my legs or my arms won't move properly and I will need help of some people or maybe some machines or something like that.
And also, apart from some physical abilities, so my main fear is to lose memory, because really, even if the person can do a lot of things on his own without memory, it is just useless, because I know that a lot of old people have this problem nowadays. They have dementia and other forms of these diseases that affect your brains, your mental abilities, and for me it is really scary.
I completely agree on this point too. I have watched a movie called Still Alice. I think it is based on real events, but I'm not sure. It is a movie about a woman who finds out that he has a rare disease at a quite young age. I mean, like maybe she was 40 or something like that, and she starts to lose her memory. And it's just the movie shows this story from her starting to lose her memory and till the end when she doesn't realize who she is and how her family struggles with that. And indeed, I understand that who are we? We are only our memories, in fact. And if we don't remember who we are, who our family members are, how can we live, how can we be a part of society, and of course how difficult it is also for the close ones who also suffer that their relative doesn't remember them. Of course it's sad when it happens, for example, to your grandparents, because you've spent a lot of moments with them but they don't remember it, for example. But also it is even scarier if it happens at a young age due to some disease or something like that.
But at the same time, in this book we can find some optimistic moments even about death. Like, so you read a part that is both sad, but at the same time the description is quite nice and beautiful. And here we have again in the story of Miss Loomis, she says, "My dear William," she said under the parasol shade, "in a few days I will be dead." "No," she put up her hand, "I don't want you to say a thing. I'm not afraid. When you live as long as I've lived, you lose that too." So, like, she's too old to be afraid of death. It gives some kind of relief.
Don't you think that people get tired of life in the first place because their bodies are tired, their bodies are full of diseases and everything is aching? And I think if our bodies were kept intact ever since, like, for example, we're 18 or something like that, maybe we would feel life differently even after many years.
Of course, I agree, but then it will be a real disaster to die. Because if you feel okay and then you just die, of course we would be afraid of that. So maybe it's just meant to be like that. Also, I want to read several quotes. Whatever happened to happy endings? They got them on shows at Saturday matinees. Sure, but what about life? All I know is I feel good going to bed nights, Doug. That's a happy ending once a day. Next morning I'm up and maybe things go bad. But all I got to do is remember that I'm going to bed that night. And just lying there a while makes everything okay. So for me it is really so true, just because when I have a bad day I know that it will be over soon, and then I will have the next day that probably will be better, and it just keeps me on the positive side. And besides, I like to cry. After I cry hard, it's like it's morning again and I'm starting the day over. And also it is so true. A good night's sleep or a 10-minute bowl or a pint of chocolate ice cream, and all three together is good medicine, Doug. You listen to Tom Spalding, MD. So I just love this quote because again I use all these remedies myself and it helps me get better actually. And I remember that when I was a child and when I cried, my mom told me, like, why are you crying? You can't help yourself with your tears. Nothing will change if you cry. At that time, of course, I listened to my mom. I tried to calm down and so on and so forth. But now I'm completely of different opinion, because I really think that it helps to release our feelings, emotions, to let the steam out. And I really try to use this very nice way of feeling better. And yeah, I cry, I sleep, and I eat something that I like, and it always works.
About crying, I mentioned that I cry kind of like easily, and sometimes when I start crying, it brings me to the mood where I start crying about everything. So for example, when yesterday I ended listening to a book, and in the last chapter I cried twice. Once because I felt something really touching, and once because it was very sad for me. And after that I kind of like stopped crying, but during the whole day, almost the whole day, I was under the impression of this book. I was almost on the verge of crying like every other hour.
And sometimes it happens to me as well, so I just start crying about some minor things that are not really important, but I'm just tired and
Yes.
everything keeps getting worse. But then I start crying about my whole life, about this aspect of my life, about this aspect, and so on. And yes, it makes me sad and I feel very bad. But after I cry and after some time passes, I usually feel much better.
Okay, so I just try to stop myself from crying because I know if I start, it might never end. And if I cry really heavily, I get to the point where I feel really strong headache and I need to take pills, and it's very difficult even to sleep. And after I cry heavily, I dream some strange, very strange dreams. I wanted to ask you about one thing. Okay, so the small abstract is also from the story about Helen. Reincarnations, a lot of milk mush to me. But the other day I felt, what if I called Robert to you on the street? Would William Forrester turn around? What do you think about reincarnations? Do you believe in such thing?
Well, I believe that we have not one life. Well, at least that something exists. So apart from our Earth life, that life exists in some other form. I do not know if it's reincarnation, if we live different lives in different bodies, but still, I think that it exists for sure.
Okay.
What about you? You told me the theory. Yeah, I
yes,
remember.
the theory is there is a theory, but for example, my mom, more than 10 years ago, we had a cat in our family, and he died. And very soon after that, my parents got a dog. And my mom thinks that our cat's soul traveled to our dog because our dog likes to sleep in the same places where our cat slept, and he has kind of like similar habits in some things. I kind of believe my mom, and I believe that there are reincarnations, and I believe in the soulmates because sometimes you just meet someone and it feels that you've known this person for your whole life because you understand each other instantly. So yes, I believe.
I love stories about animals, about pets, like because I heard so many of them. So the same as yours, like that the people had a cat, for example, or a dog, and then somehow when this pet died, somehow another pet found the same people, and this pet was very similar to the first one.
Yeah, so it's just that our cat died on the maybe 4th of March and the dog was born on the 8th of March, so very like close. The period was very close. Okay, so there is an abstract from the story about Lavinia Nebs. Sometimes I think people want to die. You've acted odd all evening. I'm just not afraid, said Lavinia, and I'm curious, I suppose, and I'm using my head. Logically, the lonely one can't be around, the police and all. The police are home with their covers up over their ears. Let's just say I'm enjoying myself, precariously but safely. If there was any real chance of anything happening to me, I'd stay here with you. You can be sure of that. Maybe part of you doesn't want to leave anymore. What do you think on the whole about the behavior of Lavinia, that during the whole evening she was just saying that she was not afraid and she didn't need anyone to see her home and all that stuff, but then when she was in the ravine and she ran and she was afraid, what do you think?
I think that her behavior was a bit strange, maybe not even a bit, but it is difficult to explain, but I agree with this part, like sometimes people behave themselves like they want to die, just because although she said something like it's not logical, so everything is okay, we are safe, still it looks like she tries to prove herself that everything is okay, and in fact we do not know what is waiting for us in the world. Yes, you should think what you do. And I think that probably she is quite young so we do not know.
We don't know her
the
age.
but I'm really sure that they are young, and I think that young people tend to be not afraid of a lot of things in life. And even though I am a very rational person and I try to use logic everywhere, I remember some moments in my life when I did something so strange, and
Yes.
now I think, why did I do that?
Yes.
Anything could happen to me. Where was my brain? What did I think? And so now, of course, I'm afraid to do a lot of things. But when I was younger, I didn't care much, even though I thought about some consequences of these actions. I thought that, it would be okay, so I would be good, so nothing would happen to me.
Again, maybe it comes with the age that you start to think more, you start to be on the safe side more. Yes, I agree.
So, and as I spoke about grandma, I also have a piece from the book, but it's quite long and I don't want to shorten it because it is really well written and it all makes sense, so all the sentences matter. Consider then, boy, any man saves fingernail chipping is a fool. You see, a snake bothered to keep his peeled skin. That's about all you got here today in this bed is fingernails and snake skin. One good breath would send me up in flakes. Important thing is not the me that's lying here, but the me that's sitting on the edge of the bed looking back at me, and the me that's downstairs cooking supper or out in the garage, under the car, or in the library reading. All the new parts, they count. I'm not really dying today. No person ever died that had a family. I'll be around a long time. 1,000 years from now, a whole township of my offspring will be beating sour apples in the gumwood shade. That's my answer to anyone asks big questions. Quick now, send in the rest. It is sad, but it's so beautiful to my mind. At the end of this short story, we also have an abstract. Downstairs, she thought, they are polishing the silver, the rummaging the cellar, and dusting in the halls. She could hear them living all through the house. It's all right, whispered Grandma, as the dream floated her. Like everything else in this life, it's fitting. So it just shows that life moves on and continues, and I love this thought a lot.
I was kind of sad when I read it because she mentions that no one ever dies if he or she has a family. And for example, I don't know if I ever going to have children or a partner in my life. And I thought that, okay, then when I'm going to die, I'm going to die and nothing is going to keep me. Though sometimes I think, why is it so important for people to be remembered after they die? Because you're dead already. You don't know anything. Why? Why is it important for people to be remembered after they die?
But it's not about being remembered. It's just...
About what then?
I think that it's just some nice thoughts that can help you to overcome the loss of your close people. So it's not just that we need to be remembered, because I completely agree with you that I do not care. So when I die, I do not know what will happen to me. That's why I do not care.
I mean, for most of people, even when they are like full of life, they tell that I want to do something to be remembered after I die. I think that great things are done without this plan. And if you are doing something only in order to be remembered, it's very strange to me. I try to do what I like, and I hope that something that I do is going to be helpful, for example, or useful to other people. And if it is so, they're going to use it and it's nice. Why not?
Well, I don't know. about doing something to be remembered for. But I just think that all people want to find their vacation. They really want to do something that matters.
Yes.
And probably this is just a kind of measure of assessment that if people remember me, that means that I really do something great. So maybe that's why they think about other people.
It's again about that we depend on society a lot and about what other people think about us. Well, the last episode that I'd like to mention is so it was written by Douglas in his notebook, and the ideas are quite important, I think, because even in the book they are written in big letters. You can't depend on things because, like machines, for instance, they fall apart or rust or rot, or maybe never get finished at all, or wind up in garages. Like tennis shoes, you can only run so far, so fast, and then the earth's got you again. Like trolleys, big as they are, always come to the end of the line. You can't depend on people because they go away. Strangers die. People you know fairly well die. Friends die. People murder people. Like in books, your own folks can die. Those two ideas are true to life, indeed. But still, if you can't depend on things, if you can't depend on people, what can you depend on? It's a frightening thing that sometimes in your life, of course you can depend on your own, so to say, but sometimes in life you get to the state where you feel very bad and you really need support from someone else or something else, and though the ideas are indeed true to life, but they are frightening again. What do you think?
I agree with these ideas and with your opinion.
Nothing to add.
Yes, nothing to add. It's all self-explanatory.
Yes.
So I can't just elaborate on this.
Yes.
When Douglas had disease, Tom was really afraid, and he said, I always thought I hated him. That's what I thought. We fight half the time. I guess I did hate him sometimes. But now, oh, Mr. Jonas, if only what, boy? If only you had something in this wagon would help. Something I could pick and take upstairs and make him all right. I just love how the family ties described here. And again, it is so true to life.
What do you think that even though we love people, we can hate them at times?
I think it's okay. It's totally okay. If you hate this person all the time, of course, it is strange. Maybe you do not love this person, or maybe you just need to change something in your relationship. Maybe he or she doesn't understand that it affects you that much. But if it happens sometimes, it's just an essential part of our life. It's very natural. And I also want to mention one moment. It is about ending of summer. Nickel tablets, dyeing tablets, notebooks, erasers, watercolors, rulers, compasses, 100,000 of them. Don't look, maybe it's just a mirage. No, moaned Tom in despair. School straight on ahead. Why do dime stores show things like that in windows before summer's even over? Ruin half the vacation. So it is something funny.
Yes.
And this is actually something I can't relate to. Because I can't say that I loved school so much that I wanted to go back and I was waiting for September. No, but it was okay for me. So usually, as in Russia we have 3 months to have a rest. That's why for me sometimes it was enough. And sometimes I was bored at home and I was waiting for doing something different, not just playing games and reading books, and just I wanted to learn something, and I love learning, and I loved learning when I was at school. But as for school supplies,
yes,
I was looking forward to it all the summer because it was like a ritual. So we all, our whole family, or just me, my sister, and my dad, we went to the bookshop and we bought a lot of beautiful pens and notebooks and pencil cases and all the things that we needed for school. And I was so happy because I loved this moment so much that it usually made my feelings better even if I didn't want to get back to school.
I completely agree, and I remember when I was somewhere in the middle of the school, they started to sell the diaries where on the covers there were different celebrities. And when I found a diary with Britney Spears on it, and I bought it, and I was so happy about it, and I just tried to write very beautifully inside this diary, and it made me really so happy. And even nowadays, whenever I go to a bookshop and I see different diaries and notebooks and copybooks, and they are so beautiful these days, and I want to buy them all. I understand that I don't need them, but still I want to buy them, and that's why I try not to go to bookshops too often. Okay, let's move to the vocabulary then.
So the first thing that I have in my vocabulary list is helter-skelter. Actually, we had this phrase, but we didn't speak about its meaning. Quickly and in all directions. Mai, she said seriously, you mustn't expect young women to talk like me. That comes later. They are much too young, first of all. And secondly, the average man runs helter-skelter the moment he finds anything like a brain in a lady.
My first abstract has two phrases. The first one is to have a bent for, which means if you have a bent for something, you have a natural ability to do it or a natural interest in it. The second phrase is to foot the bill, which means to pay the bill, settle the accounts. The abstract is: come sit with me, both of you, she said. We'll talk of strange ice creams and such things as we seem to have a bent for. Don't be afraid, I'll foot the bill.
The next one is pry around, to investigate something by asking lots of questions. You've probably met quite a few brainy ones who hid it most successfully from you. You'll have to pry around a bit to find the odd beetle. Lift a few words.
My next one is to conk out, and the spelling is different. I mean, in the book it's written with the K in the beginning, but I found with the C in the beginning. To conk out, it means, so there are several meanings. For example, to go to sleep very quickly or to suddenly become unconscious, but in this case the meaning is to stop working properly. She's old, said Tom. Grandpa says she was here when he was a boy and before, so it's bound to be someday she'd conk out and...
Okay, the next one is a word. Overwrought, in a state of being upset, nervous and worried. We are all overwrought, said Lavinia. I simply won't take a taxi if you get one. If I'm the next victim, let me be the next.
Okay, my next word is katydid, a large, typically green bush cricket that is native to North America. The male makes a characteristic sound which resembles the name. You can stop counting now. Right inside on that old thermometer, it's 87 and going up without the help of no katydids. Cicadas, 39, 40, not katydids, 42.
Then I have a phrase, to the T or to a T. So the spelling is different, the article is different, so in different sources, but in the book it was to the T, meaning perfectly or completely or exactly right. You know, and Doug knows, and I know what he looks like. He's got to be tall, don't he? Sure, and he's got to be pale, don't he? Pale, that's right, and skinny like a skeleton, and have long dark hair, don't he? That's what I always said. And big eyes bulging out, green eyes like a cat. That's him to the T.
Okay, my last word is a hunch. If you have a hunch about something, you are sure that it is correct or true, even though you do not have any proof, some kind of premonition. I got a hunch, said Douglas. What? Next year is going to be even bigger. Days will be brighter, nights longer and darker. More people dying, more babies born, and me in the middle of it all.
I've got a proverb to put your finger in the dike. It means to delay impending disaster. Tom, you are a pal. You got a real brain. None of us would have saved the day this way. The summer was sure going bad up to this very minute. You got your thumb in the dike just in time. August won't be a total loss. So, of course, I enjoyed it a lot because this is my favorite author, and this book is, as we mentioned 1,000,000 times, thought-provoking, and actually it is very relatable, like the moments, the descriptions there are very true to life. And so speaking about myself, and I can say that this book and other books by Bradbury is kind of a source of comfort for me, and they all have healing effect, despite the fact that actually they are quite sad and depressive in a lot of moments, I would say. Still, they just show the life as it is, and also they show that our life is full of very bad events. But still, we can find something that we can focus on to make it better and to stay on the good side, to have some optimistic thoughts about it, and just to live our life differently, focusing on good moments and good emotions. I believe that Bradbury teaches us to accept bad events in our life. So it can be very difficult, and it is very difficult indeed, but it is something natural, and it is something that happens all the time. So it is life, and that's why I love a lot of his novels and books. And when I finished reading Dandelion Wine, I also read this book, Farewell Summer, and this is like the sequel of this. We talked about it the last time. Well, I liked it, but not to the same extent as I loved this book, Dandelion Wine, just because it is even more depressive and sad. So I think that this book actually is very bright. So despite all this,
in comparison,
moments, yes, and not only in comparison, just so as I see it. So for me, it is quite bright, and it is filled with a lot of nice moments. Maybe the main point, even not in all these nice moments in the book, but when you read it, you start to remember nice moments from your childhood.
Yes.
And that's why you feel this kind of connection to the author, and you feel some warmth when you read this book. But as for this book, well, I can't say that it is really different, because again, it has some stories about his childhood, about some people from this book, from Dandelion Wine, but it concentrates even more on sad things, namely on time. That time passes by, that
we can't stop it.
Yes, we can't stop it, we can't fight the time. We live in our offsprings, in our children, and if you do not have children, so it may be kind of sad for you. That's why I didn't enjoy it as much, but still, and yeah, you can see that I have not very many notes here, but still, there are some nice thoughts, and I didn't regret that I spent time on this book, so it was good, but not that good as this one.
And as for me, after I finished reading Dandelion Wine, because also we had a little break, I decided to reread 451 Fahrenheit, and I was under a big impression again, but I was so very much depressed by the last third of this book, because it's filled with so many heavy thoughts, heavy events. I didn't remember the last third of the book at all, and I was very much emotional about what I've read. I think the main idea is that we should be very happy that we can read books, Because from the books we can learn things, we can find out other people's thoughts on many things that maybe we will never come across in our daily life, but it is very important to find out about them. I think the main idea is that we are happy that we can read books and we should cherish it and we should continue reading it. Okay guys, thanks for watching this episode. You can join our Telegram and VK. All the contacts are also under the video. And live long and
May the summer never be really over for you.
bye bye.
Bye bye. Прошел месяц, я вообще забыла все напрочь. Speak to his old friend George. He asked George to put the phone to the window so he can hear
не
the
George.
sounds. А кто?
Jorge.
А, ну конечно, это же Mexico City. The colonel, he managed, and he again holds the phone to the window.
Что такое?
Два раза again. Bill Forrester drives Douglas to the... Что? Meets Loomis. Она же Loomis, надеюсь.
Да.
Bill confesses that he was in love. The beginning of wisdom, as they say. Сейчас. Сначала начну.
Appear. Come. The more changes in the body come, and the ideas are quite какие? Important.
Well, I have... Что это вообще? Phrase, word? My next phrase, my next... Ну, короче, это не phrase, like.
Okay. The male makes a character. Okay. You can find our. Что можно найти? Все, подождите, не могу. Сейчас.